It's interesting. When I made up the topics for these talks, I just kind of let them sort of show up, and I wrote down whatever showed up, and moods showed up. And when I started to think about it earlier this week, I thought, I'm not sure that I have a whole lot to say about moods. So I'm going to talk. I do have a little bit to say about moods, and it feels like really important. But we'll just see how it goes, and whether it leads to a discussion of actually talking about moods, or it takes us somewhere else. I'm open to that too. So we can go in the discussion where we want. Before I talk about moods, I want to talk a little bit about thought, because I think understanding thought is really important for being able to see what moods are and where they come from. They come from thought. So this whole discussion series is based on 3 principles of how the mind works. And some of you have heard this before. Some of you have heard this a lot before. I'm going to repeat it because it just never hurts. So maybe let it sink in deeper. So there are three. So first of all, what's a principle? A principle is just something that's true, kind of no matter what. And an example that's used a lot is gravity. So gravity's always there, and we don't usually spend a lot of time thinking about gravity, but it impacts us all day long, all the time, and it's just true. And because it is, it allows us to do certain things. It allows us to sit in these chairs without floating away. And I'm not a scientist, but I know that there's lots of things in science that come from the fact that we have gravity. So these are principles of how the mind works. And there are also 3 principles that point to the sameness in all of us. Really, yeah, I like that. Point to the sameness in all of us. So the first one is the principle of universal mind. And what that means is that there's a intelligence at work in our universe that just always exists, and it's always there for us. My dogwood trees, they bloom pink flowers every spring. And there's something, they know to do that. There's some intelligence behind them. And we call it nature, we call it science. And yet underneath that nature and underneath that science, it's the driving force behind those things. So the dogwood tree knows to have pink flowers every spring, and this one knows to have pink flowers. This is a pink dogwood tree, not a white dogwood tree. The white ones know to have white flowers. And there have been some summers we've had birds' nests in this backyard, and they know to come, and they know how to build their nest, and they know how to lay their eggs, and they know how to feed their babies, and they know when it's time for the babies to leave the nest. It's this built-in intelligence that is available to them at any moment. And we have that too. And for us it turns up as common sense, creativity, new ideas, that feeling of just knowing, when you know what the next thing to do is. The second principle is the principle of consciousness. And that's really just the fact that we're aware, that we can see this intelligence around us, that we can experience it, that we can be aware of our moods and our state of mind and our levels of clarity, and that we're aware. And then the third one is thought. And thought's the one that relates to mood the most for me. So sometimes when people hear this for the first time, it's a little bit mind-boggling. So prepare yourself. We live in a world of thought. We couldn't experience anything in this world without thought. And yet, we have a tendency to have experiences and then think that our thoughts are coming from those experiences. And yet, it's actually the reverse. It's our thinking that creates our experience. So in any moment, we couldn't experience the moment without thought, and we're actually creating the moment through thought. It's a creative endeavor. And in that world, we live in that world of thought. So where do moods come in? It's interesting. I used to teach, before I learned these principles, I used to teach about mood. And I used to teach about bringing a mood to your workspace, for instance, or bringing a mood to your home, or bringing a mood to a project, or even the fact that a city or a country can be in a mood. And we used to talk about there being 4 different types of moods. So we would talk about ambition, being in a mood of ambition, being in a mood of resignation, being in a mood of resentment, or being in a mood of, I'm forgetting what the 4th one is. It's just basically like allowing. Resentment, resignation, ambition, and I can't remember the word. But anyway, it's basically like, okay, this is how it is. I can't change it. I accept it. Acceptance. That's it. So when you think about having an understanding and being able to observe your experiences, you have an experience, and then you can observe that experience, and you can put labels on what you're observing. So that's where, if you talk about being in a mood of ambition or being in a mood of resignation, that would be a way of observing your mood. And then under that is this even deeper level of observation where you can see, oh, my mood of resignation comes from my thinking. And because I'm having resigned thinking, then I'm having an experience of resignation. So in that light, what moods are is thinking that we haven't let go of. So if it's just an experience, then it's an experience, maybe it's an emotion. And if it hangs around, then we call it a mood. Make sense? Explore more. Just a couple more things I want to say, and then we'll turn the camera on. So mood is thought that hangs around. And I teach kids sometimes, and there's an exercise that I do with the teenagers around holding on to your thought versus letting your thoughts go. And what we do is we take hot water and we dip tea bags in hot water to show them that if you dip a tea bag in the water and take it out right away, it doesn't change the color very much. And if you put the tea bag in and you really let it steep, the water gets darker and darker and darker and darker. And that represents what we can choose to do with thought. So we can experience a thought, and then we can let it go. Or we can experience a thought, and we can steepen it. And one isn't necessarily better than the other, because sometimes it feels really good to steep in our moods. It's just a matter of noticing that it's coming from us. It's not coming from anything external to us. And it doesn't mean we have to do anything, it's just an explanation. But to be able to see that and say, okay, I'm steeping in my mood. One of the other things that I've noticed recently is that when I actually allow myself to steep in a mood, without layering a whole bunch of other thoughts on top of it, like, I feel upset. Why do I feel upset? I need to figure out why I feel upset. What am I going to do about it? How can I fix it? That's a whole lot of thought layering. And that thought layering can actually be the steeping, so that you're not letting it go. But if I can just say, like, I'm sad right now, and just stay there without the I'm sad because, and what am I going to do about it, and how am I going to cope with this, and where did it come from? then I can fully experience the sad. And it actually can become something beautiful. Because it's just sad. And sad is something we experience in life. It's part of the fullness that we've got. So yeah, that's about all I wanted to say about moods. I wanted to read one thing from Sydney Banks's book, The Missing Link. And this is a chapter called Living in the Now. Sydney Banks, for those of you who are new, was the first person to articulate these three principles that I was just describing. So he says, through the centuries, the wise have told us to live in the now. This is why I say to you, the past is a ghost that cannot be held in the palm of your hand. The future cannot be grasped, no matter how desirable and or enticing it may appear. Nor can the present be held, no matter how beautiful or exciting. Begin the process of nourishing the soul by living in the now. Forget the past and the future, and just be, and you will surely be rewarded by living in the now. When Eastern mystics describe the now, they are not talking about today as a specific day of the month and year. Their meaning goes deeper. When such people refer to the now, they mean the personal mind is free from the contaminants of yesterday's memories and fears. This in turn frees the mind to see with clarity things as they are, not through distorted memories and apprehensions. Living in the now requires a clear mind. In clearing our minds, we may have to give up something to receive something. If you wanted to replace a glass of stale wine with fresh wine, first you must pour out the old wine. It is the same with clearing our minds of unwanted stale thoughts.